Hey, welcome to X-Oriente, the new voice of brotherhood. I am Eric Diamond.
And I'm your other host, Jason Van Dyke.
And we apologize for missing last week. Why did we miss last week, Jason? As he throws him under the bus.
I fell asleep.
It happens.
I was tired.
It's okay. It's all right.
I had a long, busy weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I got sleepy.
Mm-hmm.
And I laid my head down for a quick nap.
Mm-hmm.
And woke up in the morning.
Excellent.
I was sleepy.
It's all right.
Sorry.
It happens.
Yeah.
So today we thought we would, this is something I've been wanting to do for a while, and I'm glad we're kind of like 4 episodes into it. I guess the first thing is there anything going on in Freemasonry right now? I'm on the Masonic news. Oh, there's that whole like Louisiana thing, but I don't really know about that.
Yeah.
It's kind of silly.
Although it is silly, but it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
It's just the only reason it's interesting to me is because Louisiana. It was rightly pointed out by Chris that Louisiana predates a lot of the appendant body stuff. They predate their governing structures, which is kind of funny. The first consistory in the United States was in New Orleans. That predates the formation of the Supreme Council in Charleston by almost 20 years. No, 10 years, maybe 17 something. And Supreme Council of Scottish Rite doesn't start until 1801. So,
well, for those who don't know, it's the latest in a series of kerfluffles. Louisiana suspended a guy. I think he was a past Grand Master, and then expelled him. And soon afterward, he was introduced at the Grand Encampment of the Knights Templar, which made, understandably, the Grand Lodge of Louisiana not real happy. And they issued an edict saying that nobody in Louisiana could be Knight Templar under the authority of the Grand Encampment. Now that I'm not sure that really means a whole lot, because I know that I'm pretty sure that Illinois for a long time was not part of the Grand Encampment either. It was like its own thing.
Correct. Right.
So I don't think it's really going to change.
The Grand Encampment is a relatively young organization.
Yeah. So I think what it just means is that all of the Knight Templar bodies in Louisiana are going to pull out of the Grand Encampment until they, patch things up. So I don't know that it's going to have a huge effect on anybody in Louisiana who's currently a Knight Templar. But it's another one, it's another one of those things. And
it is.
Everybody's got, opinions this way and that way. I'd say if you're interested in it, Chris Hodap on his blog, freemasonsfordummies.blogspot.com, is pretty much keeping current on it. I know Chris is heavily involved in the Commandery and the Templars, and so he's following it pretty closely. So if you're interested, go over there and check it out. But it's not. Obviously, I don't have a dog in the fight, and
right.
Even if I did, I don't think I would. But let's talk about Lodge 49. So for those, and by the way, giant spoiler alert, if you haven't seen this, and you're going to see this, my advice to you is depth. Turn off and
fire it up after you've watched.
Yeah. It'll be there. Of course, we're not getting comments, but I don't know. Are there any comments so far?
No, there's no comments.
Oh, good. Okay.
We've got no comments.
Then that's why there's no comments showing up. All right.
Right.
Is anyone here?
We've got 2 audience members.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Terrific.
And me.
Fantastic. All right. So, so again, if you haven't seen it and you're going to see it, or here's the thing, nothing can spoil something for me. Right. I think the whole idea of spoilers is silly, right? We all know how the Odyssey ends, yet we can go see you know what I mean? Like, Hamlet dies in the end, right?
That's right. Right. The ship sinks.
The ship sinks.
We get it.
Right. We know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's really, like, to me, what's more important about a movie or a TV show or whatever is how they tell the story and the characters
Correct.
and stuff like that, not, plot points and things like that. So
Correct.
having said that, it never bothers me. I never say to someone, "Oh, don't talk about something because I haven't seen it yet."
No.
But all
Yeah.
right.
So where do we start with it?
I thought it would be kind of cool, since we're kind of known for this, for the PARDES methodology, which is the way that the Kabbalists kind of tackle a text. I thought it would be kind of fun to sort of tackle this, this review, this deep dive, using PARDES as our method, right? So the first, for the P in PARDES stands for Pshat, which is the literal meaning of something. And so I guess let's how would you describe the show?
God, it's a really good question. It is. I think when you boil it all the way down, the simplest way is what if the dude joined a lodge?
The dude from Big Lebowski.
Big Lebowski, right? If you mushed that with a lodge instead of bowling, you've got a lodge, and that's the easiest way to describe it. But it is about much more than that. It's even on its surface, the story is bigger than that. And so it's actually really good TV. I have to say that right off the bat. It's really good TV. It's well written. It's well thought out. The plot is very good. The characterizations in it are really well done, and it's not just simply like, oh, here's a guy who's a caricature of the dude. It's not what it is at all.
Yeah. So the guy who plays that guy. So
Goldie
the guy we're
Hawn's
talking about,
and
it's
Goldie
Kurt
Hawn
Russell's,
and Kurt Russell's kid.
Yeah.
And he's really good. I think he's doing a great job.
Yeah. So interestingly, I have a kind of a personal connection.
Oh.
So Goldie Hawn's...
You're also Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell's child?
I'm a little long in the tooth for that. But my mom was good friends with Goldie Hawn's mom when we lived in DC.
Oh, nifty.
Yeah, because Goldie Hawn is from
I didn't know that.
Yeah, is from the area. So they were in B'nai B'rith together.
Oh, look at that.
And
nice.
Which B'nai, for those who don't know, B'nai B'rith was sort of like the Jewish answer to the Masons, sort of like what Knights of Columbus is to Catholicism. B'nai B'rith was to Judaism, and over time, they shed all of the fraternal parts of it, and now, but the women's auxiliary survived, and it's still to this day. It's sort of a major Jewish women's organization. So. Yeah. Anyway, so they were in B'nai B'rith together, and
that's cool.
That's my connection. But anyway, to talk about the story. The story is that there's this guy named Dudley, and everybody calls him Dud, and he's actually the dude, right? So there's the silent E is missing, and he's a pool repair, like pool maintaining guy. His dad and they have a family business, and he has a sister who works in a restaurant, right, called Shamrocks, which I guess is supposed to be like Hooters and what is it, Twisted Kilt or whatever. Yeah. So she works in a restaurant, and it takes place in Long Beach, which Long Beach is a town in California that's been pretty hard hit economically. It used to be a very big place for aviation, and over time it's kind of dwindled. As there's been a lot of mergers and acquisitions and stuff like that in the aerospace industry, and plus the whole the death of Apollo and the defunding of NASA and all that. A lot of that stuff was built out of Long Beach, and so it takes place in Long Beach. And Dud, the backstory of Dud is that Dud goes on a surfing trip to Thailand, and he gets bitten by a poisonous snake. And pretty much ends his surfing career. And when he gets back, his dad dies, and they find out that his dad was completely financially insolvent, and they lose the business, they lose the house. Basically, Dud and his sister Liz, their entire world gets thrown upside down, and Dud is now kind of unemployed, drinks too much, and has for a year now they have not been able to let his dad go, and his dad dies, I think in a surfing accident, or like he just sort
paddleboarding.
Oh, it's paddleboarding. Yeah,
he gets sucked out by the tide.
Yeah. So they never find the body. There's no
right.
closure, stuff like that. So so Dud is a pretty messed up guy, and one day he's hanging out on the beach, and kind of with his metal detector, and he finds a ring, and the ring is a ring to the lodge. What is it? The order.
The Lynx. The order of the Lynx.
The Order of the Lynx, which is like a cat. And what's their logo? It's like a lynx rampant with what's he holding? It's like an hourglass or something like that.
I don't remember.
Yeah, he's holding some kind of hourglass, but it's it looks very much like a Masonic ring.
Right.
And he finds this. Oh, geez, my dogs.
That's all right. Uh-huh.
He finds this ring and just kind of pockets it, and later on his. In a thing of serendipity, his car runs out of gas right in front of the Lynx Lodge. And so he's introduced to Lodge 49. And so he goes inside, he meets this guy, Ernie, who is an African-American gent who he sells plumbing fixtures. And he kind of gets interested and introduced into the lodge. And so that's kind of episode 1. And he starts to, he petitions the lodge. And we kind of get to know some of the other characters, and there's really like 4 primary, aside from Dud and his sister, there's 4 primary characters. There's Ernie, who's this plumbing salesman, and and Ernie's just like this guy. He's really ambitious, but he's getting older, and he's kind of like starting to come to terms with the fact that he's never going to be this great success that he wanted to be. There's Connie, who works in the local newspaper as a reporter. And Blaze, who's sort of like, I love Blaze because Blaze is like the esotericist in the lodge. He's, I guess he's he runs the local pot dispensary, and he's the bartender at the lodge. So unlike Masonic lodges, the Lynx lodges have a full bar in the lodge. And then there's Scott, and Scott works as a cop for the Harbor Patrol in Long Beach, and is married to Connie, right? I got that right? Yeah, okay.
Yep, you did.
And so that's kind of the show, and it's sort of about Dud's journey into the world of the lodge. And when we meet him, he's kind of hit rock bottom, right? He's drinking and causing disruptions and getting arrested and stuff, and he's still grieving his father, and then he meets up with the lodge, and things start to transform. Now, meanwhile, in the lodge, there's this guy Larry who's like, I guess, the master of the lodge. And unlike Masonic lodges, I think you're master of the Lynx Lodge until you die, I think, or until you retire and they replace you. And there's this great scene, I think it was in the first episode, where they have to call the Grand Lodge, which is in London. So they call it Lodge number 1, right?
Right.
They call the Grand Lodge to basically request some kind of transition thing so that they can get a new.
That's in the second or third episode.
Yeah. What do they call it? The Guardian Sentinel or some.
I can't remember.
It's basically the Worshipful Master, right?
Right.
So to get the Worshipful Master, there's some procedure that requires that somebody from the Grand Lodge travel to the lodge to install this new master. And so Larry is just had a heart attack and looks like he's on his way out, shuffling off this mortar coil, and so Ernie is going to replace him, right? So this is like Ernie's big shot to become like master of the lodge.
And Ernie's been promised to replace him for years.
For years, yeah.
Larry has told him, you're next. Don't worry. I'm right around the corner. You're next. Sovereign protector. That's it. Thank you, Ryan Reed. Thank you. God bless you. Sovereign protector. And he said, you'll be the next sovereign protector.
Sovereign
And,
protector.
and it never really happens. And so now it's actually going to happen. Ernie's called the lodge number 1, and he has an amazing conversation with them in London in what looks like a very, very small room.
It kind of like I saw that and I instantly thought of you, right? I instantly
exactly.
thought, Jason,
Yeah.
But your office is bigger.
It is. Yeah. And so he calls and he says, "Oh, sure, all right. Well, I'll go. Expect somebody in the next few weeks. And so he goes to inform his boss, which he gets up at his desk, and the camera kind of follows him to an elevator. He goes and he gets in this very small elevator. The elevator takes him down. As the elevator opens, the camera is facing him in the elevator, and he reaches around and he picks up a blindfold, puts on the blindfold, takes a deep breath, and then starts walking forward, counting his steps until he gets to a door, which he opens and talks to his boss, tells the boss what's going on. The boss is a woman who says, woman's voice, who says, yeah, well, you should get your things together and go. You're the only one available. You go. Oh, all right. And then he says, thank you very much, closes the door, turns around, puts his back to the door, and then counts his steps back to take the blindfold off and get back on the elevator. It's amazing. And I definitely want people to do that to my office from now on.
Yeah. Well, when you become Grandmaster,
Right.
We'll do that. We'll do that for you.
That is amazing. Yeah. I mean, there are all these little hints, that about Masonry in it.
Let's get to that in a second.
Yeah,
have we wrapped up the shot?
Well, sure.
Is there anything that, about the plot that people need to know to kind of? Oh, there's one more. No. There's one more thing. One more thing that's important. Dud gets a part-time job at a temp agency at this company that's like some kind of aerospace company. And all they're doing is shutting down. So he's working for the HR person who's in charge of firing everybody. So this woman is just despondent and miserable because all day long, all she does is fire people. And she's been doing it for like 2 years. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a huge company.
Yeah.
And we could also say this as well, is that Ernie he's actually a salesman for a plumbing and electrical supply wholesaler. And so what he does is that he tries to sell large orders to suppliers or to big contractors who are working on giant jobs. And one of those jobs that's happening in the Long Beach community is the reclamation and rebuilding of the site where all of these people are being fired from this aerospace company. And that site is kind of shrouded in a little bit of mystery. They don't know who they kind of know who the developer is, a shady guy named the Captain. But no one's ever seen him. No one knows any plans about what's going to actually happen, what the redevelopment's going to be like. And so that's a little bit of a mystery as well. And an oddly connected one. And it's just another thing that connects Dud and the lodge and the people in the lodge.
Cool. All right, so let's go to Rimas, right? So let's talk about the allegory, which is, of course, its similarities to Freemasonry. So
sure.
What do you think?
All right. Well, so my first thought, actually, after seeing the first episode, right into the first episode, I thought to myself, wait a minute, this isn't Masonry. This is Oddfellows.
Yeah.
Right? Because, first of all, it's co-ed. And that's the first kind of tip off. And the second tip off is that a lot of the iconography that they use in it seems very Oddfellows-ish to me. And so it felt more to me like an Oddfellows story. But that being said, all fraternalism is fraternalism. And so, and it all stems from one source. That's us.
Yeah.
It's Masonry.
So do you think that it was
So-
that decision was made deliberately, or like was it a
Absolutely.
show? Was it a
It was-
convenience for the show, or do you think it figures into the plot somehow?
No, I think it's a convenience for the show, for sure. I mean, for sure. And it also allows the show to mix their characters for possible love connections, or love triangles, as it were. And so I think it's definitely for the convenience of the show. And you know, and like I said, I mean, it feels more Oddfellows-y to me. Just practically, like right on its surface. So I mean, it works itself just fine. The similarities, though, the structural similarities, you know, you can't get away from. And the other thing is the fourth episode, I think. Is it the last episode? Yeah, the last episode took place in and around a pancake breakfast, which the best part, I think, and here's the thing, I think the best part of the show, from a Masonic perspective, from a guy who's a member of an organization, a fraternity like this, is that they get the details really well. They really understand the practical side of fraternalism, right? And that the truth about us is that we're much more boring than is ascribed to us. You know, the notoriety ascribed to us. And pancake breakfasts are something that we all bitch about. And to have a whole episode that kind of weaves itself through a pancake breakfast is hilarious. It's just great. It understands some of the other aspects of fraternalism, like Americanism. You can see that kind of runs. There's a theme of Americanism that runs through the show. There is definitely, and it's made very overt, the conflict, the social conflict within the lodge between the esoterists and the socialists, those who just want to have a social club, and those who are kind of looking for something deeper and really kind of trying to mine the symbolism that they're taught in the lodge. And there's a great scene actually where it all plays out, where they end up having a memorial service for the dad, and Ernie and what's his name, the bartender,
Blaze
and Blaze show up, you know, as lodge brothers would, you know, to give some support. And they're sitting in this church, and Dud gets up to give his eulogy, and for the whole time, you know, Ernie is really into it, and he's kind of like leaning forward on his pew, and Blaze is just, oh God, you know, as people talk about, you know, what a great guy he was and whatever. And so Dud gets up to give his eulogy and starts just spouting off on alchemy and how, you know, this is all part of the alchemical great work and blah 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 blah.
So the links, we should point out that the links is like kind of their whole thing kind of revolves around alchemy. Like
Right.
exactly. That's the esoteric kind of thread that weaves through the links.
And so
order.
So Ernie slumps back into his chair as he starts rattling off about alchemy and just rolls his eyes, and Blaze switches and, and gets up and moves right in, and it could be no more perfect. It was just beautiful. I would love to play that for every initiate we ever had and say, this you will experience. But I mean, it's great. Somebody clearly who's writing this, somebody clearly understands what it means to be, you know, in a fraternal organization in the 21st century. They definitely understand this.
And I should say that this show is like, it's kind of a dark comedy. It's meant to be funny,
Right. It's a little bit like Breaking Bad in a way, where
Yeah.
there is serious stuff. There is drama that's going on, punctuated by a, I guess the absurdity of life as well.
Yeah.
And so it's still funny, but it's definitely a serious show.
Yeah. Um, and so what's interesting is that of these four characters kind of are representative of the different aspects or faces in a lodge, right? So you have Ernie, who's sort of the hierarchy, who's in charge, statusy bit of
Ernie to me was the good secretary.
yeah,
He understands the rules. He's been around for a while. He knows the ins and outs. He knows what's proper. He knows where he can break the rules if he breaks the rules. He understands it all. Larry, is the absent-minded master, or even at this point maybe past master.
yeah, we don't know,
Right? We don't know. And then you go ahead. No, and go, I mean,
yeah. So Larry to me kind of represents, he represents sort of the old guard of the fraternity. Like people know some stuff about him, but then they're like kind of mysteries, and we know that the lodge had a much more glorious past than the present. The whole idea is that the Order of the Lynx is kind of it's like Masonry. It's kind of shabby, and it's
right.
It's sort of a shadow of what it once was, back in the 50s and 60s. But then the character of Scott, who's the harbor master, the harbor patrol guy, he kind of represents the social service aspect of it. So all he cares about is like the pancake breakfasts and the community outreach and the charity
Which they
stuff.
right. They did the pancake breakfast for the Boy Scouts.
Right. Blaze, of course, is, as we said before, is the esotericist. And Connie sort of represents the caring, charitable side of, the idea that we are taking care of each other kind of aspect of the fraternity. So you have in these four characters, these four different, almost like cardinal direction points of what a lodge is, right?
Absolutely.
Embodied in these four people.
Absolutely. I'm trying to think of what else we could say on this level. They have ritual that it was hilarious, and again, totally understanding of 21st century Masonry, and that some lodges are better than others at said ritual. And Dudley during his initiation, screws up his lines, has people trying to feed him lines, has everything that happens during ritual happens to him in that thing.
Yeah, people break character and start arguing.
Right. Exactly. up to and including Ernie, who's standing in as sovereign protector for the ritual, including him basically just abandoning ship and just being like, "Nope, fine, you're in. You've been initiated." It's just great. Where it's clear that they didn't get through the whole thing, and he just is like, "Yeah, we're done."
Yeah, and the layout of the lodge is it's clear that the people who wrote it have never been inside of an actual Masonic lodge, or
right.
It's clear they're not. None of them are really Masons, I don't think.
Yeah.
But so the way the room is arranged, the dais looks kind of the same as a Masonic dais, right? You have a master's chair, and then you have two chairs flanking the master, and a podium with a gavel, But then the way that the room is arranged is it's sort of like auditorium style. So you have got like folding chairs and people. So there's really no floor work. There's no there's no altar. There's no so in that respect it doesn't conform to a Masonic lodge. But the costumes were very reminiscent of certain Scottish Rite degrees, which I will not name.
True. Although I also saw them as very Oddfellow-y as well.
I don't know enough about Oddfellow ritual or stuff to really know, but yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Although I really want that hoodwink, because this hoodwink was like like a velvet thing over it, and then it had eyes like sewn onto it. So awesome. So great. And I want that purely for the entertainment of the lodge while we're initiating people, just so that we
are you
can
listening,
see it and laugh.
Patrick Craddock? That's all
That's
I can
absolutely right.
Right?
Absolutely. You have a new market. I want 3%. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I think does that kind of wrap up
I think that wraps
stuff?
up Remus. I think that wraps up
Okay.
Remus.
Okay.
So let me ask you a question. I guess let's take a pause for a second. Are there any questions or comments?
Oh, we got a bunch of comments. Joe Crociata, overboiled green beans. Definitely true.
That's Joe's favorite.
I'm sure that I know, and I know that it's got to be coming in another episode or two. We'll definitely see something like that. Chris Ruley, the founder of the Links, the Lodge One. Oh, right. So there's a whole legend about how this is all the Links is found. And that's the founder of Lodge One finds all these rare alchemical texts in Egypt. And I think he etch them on a golden slab or something like that. And then he's
Sounds
buried.
kind of Mormon to me.
Right. That's exactly what I thought too. Right. And then he's buried underneath Lodge One with these alchemical texts. And the texts are the comments were coming too fast, so I'm anything beyond that I can't see.
Yeah.
Sean Carrick, I'd be interested to have the eyes on the hoodwink too. See, thank you, Sean. I appreciate that. 3%. And Ryan Reed, it's allegorical text. There's a bunch of that too. Where he talks about that this is all allegory that's deep and meaningful if you're looking in the right place for it. That's all part of Blaze's thing, which is just fantastic. I also like, by the way, that in the bathroom, the wallpaper, there's a small runner on the wallpaper in the bathroom that are little alchemical symbols.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, for like the moon, the sun, Mercury.
I gotta go back and check that out.
Hilarious. And the best part is that they clearly understand this stuff, because you can see some of these symbols popping up places where they're, and maybe I'm probably jumping the gun on our PARDES, because it's there's the show itself is an allegory as well, I think. So, but I'm probably jumping the gun.
Maybe just a little, but there was one other thing. I can't remember now.
Oh wait, okay, and
it was Blaze. It was Blaze's behavior. So in episode, so what's interesting is the show kind of starts off slow, and then by like episode 4, things are like really picking up.
Right, absolutely.
And so what happens is Dudley, they're preparing the guest room. They have like a secret guest room, which is kind of hilarious in and of itself, because they there's like a coat hook, and they pull it, and it's like a secret door, and
it's not a coat hook, it's the sword that's mounted on the wall.
Sword, right? Yeah. So they pull the sword out, right?
The sword,
and a secret door opens up, and it's all of this is a bedroom, right? And and Dud lays down on the Murphy bed, and the Murphy bed just, of course, folds up, throws him through the wall, and it turns out that there's a secret room back there, and this past master from like 1962 is found mummified in the secret chamber that has all the, it's like basically like an alchemical library.
Yep.
And one of the funniest things that I've seen so far is they're like, oh my God, it's a mummy. And Blaze, who's the esotericist, is like, no, technically it's what did he call, like a corpus something.
Corpus.
Yeah. A corpus something, which is it's preserved. He's talking about the nuances and like, yeah, whatever.
Right.
And they keep
a corpus.
Yeah. And he keeps referring to it as a mummy. And then later on the news crew shows up. And the news crew is like, so what's with the mummy? And it just reminded me of that sketch in Monty Python where he's like, it's not a balloon, it's an airship, and
exactly. Just, and what to me, what was hilarious is that, and this is just my experience with Masonry and doing communications for Masonry, is that that news thing is absolutely 100% accurate, which is because Blaze tells the news lady, everyone's freaking out like, ooh, it's a mummy, but it's really a corpus, and then goes on to explain what he means. And literally for that, on the nightly news, the only clip that makes it is him going, it's a mummy.
So
which
what?
Is amazing. Right. Sorry, Joe Cruciata, I want to just point out real quick before the comment disappears, said, if you haven't discussed the themes from Pynchon's book yet, it might be interesting. Right. And so I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to guess that what he's talking about is Gravity's Rainbow, a book that I'm not smart enough to have read.
I haven't read it either.
So I would love to hear what that's about. I mean, I know what it's about.
I think we're going to have to get Joe back on the show.
Yeah, I agree with that because that sounds awesome. I'm really, really, really interested about that. Anyhow, let's see. Yeah. So that catches us up a little bit. Oh no, Joe says it's the crying of Lot 49.
What?
Yeah, I've never heard of it. Now, ooh. All right. So mind is blown. We're gonna have to go.
Okay.
Go to the library. I don't have
Damn it! I was all set to read Spinoza next week, and now I've got to go and read.
Yep, Crying of Lot 49, which is going to be Thomas Pynchon. God, it's going to hurt my brain. I have a very small brain, and that's going to hurt it a lot.
Okay.
All right. Well, we'll try.
If only we'd known.
He said it's the story of the Sub Rosa Postal Service. Okay. Yeah, I'm definitely reading that this week. All right, good. Yeah. All right. Okay, that's great. All right. So, all right.
Let's get into the interpreted meaning.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
That would be drosh.
Mm-hmm.
So what do we make of this of the series? Like, what does it mean to us today?
That's a good question. That is a really good question. Now, here, do we talk about the themes of the show and how those themes are like the surface level themes of the show?
Yeah. So I'll jump in.
Yeah, go.
I think so. So this is about a world. So the world of this show is a world where your sense of self-worth is tied to your work. Mm-hmm. Right? So Dud is Dud, right? Because he's out of work and he's not a productive member of society. And Connie, she loses her job as a reporter, in a really hilarious scene where she's fired by somebody who's 20 years younger than her, talking about like how they need to, leverage and optimize their social media. It's just this gobbledygook that I swear to God, I hear it every other day in my job. Mm-hmm. Right. But and I could totally, having spoken to people at Facebook, at Twitter, at LinkedIn, at, I totally can understand the language he was speaking, and you could see it just meant absolutely nothing to her and just sounded like you're fired.
Right. Right.
Ernie is a character who's struggling to to maintain his, he drives a Cadillac, and he's sort of struggling to kind of maintain that sort of lifestyle that he probably once had. Liz works this dead end job in a restaurant, and she's, I think the backstory used to be that she was once a paralegal, and
she was going to go to law school.
She was going to go to law school, and with the death of her father, she now finds herself like wearing like a short plaid skirt. She's a British actress.
No.
Yeah.
Ooh, she does a really good American accent.
Yeah, she's one of those Brits who is doing an American accent. Which I think, that's going to be next in the trade war. I think there's going to be a tariff on British actors
on that.
doing,
Makes sense. Makes sense.
And the temp boss, right, is this person who's tasked with firing all these people. And it's really funny that there's this scene where Dud is showing up to work for the first time, and he's walking through the office. He's walking in this big cubicle farm, all the way to the back of the cubicle farm, and all the cubes are empty. And every once in a while, like every 10th cube, right, there's somebody in the cube just with their head in their hands, or, slumped over their desk weeping, because they've just been fired or something like that. So it's this, to me, it's kind of there's this whole thing about kind of like what you do for a living and your self-worth, right? And I don't know, because we're only in episode 4, but I kind of feel like that there's going to be this sort of morality tale about, that there's more to life than just work.
Yeah. Well, and similarly, I think that the morality tale, a little bit of the morality tale that they're telling, also has to do with glory days, and kind of a trying to regain that which you had, which is clearly better than what you have today. So you can see that theme through the lodge, which, like all fraternalism, once was this great giant thing that was alive, and now today is shrinking, and our buildings are going away. They're rotting. We don't have the members that we used to have anymore. And all that stuff. But then you look at the characters' lives, right? Dud used to have an identity. He had a business that one day he would inherit. He found purpose in that. He was an incredible good surfer on his way to being a pro surfer. And when he gets bitten by the snake, he can't even get on a surfboard anymore. Trying to think of the other ones. So the aerospace industry once was this giant thing that kept that community alive, and now is gone. And they can actually watch it die in front of them.
And Connie's journalism, right? So
She
worked
right?
in I think the way she described it was the last of the nicotine stained newsrooms.
Correct.
Right.
Exactly. She's a hard drinker. From the glory days of print journalism. So, if you really look at it, there are so many little aspects in this that are telling us, this is about trying to, grab back your glory days. Ernie drives that Cadillac. He used to be, a really productive salesman. And he talks about how, like, it used to be super easy. I never had to think about it. And nowadays, I struggle. I got to get out there and find that next big thing. So I think there's a big theme about that in the show. Let me just grab a couple comments before they go away. Chris Ruley says, the writers are arguing that our personal interactions are the things that support us during times of intense struggle. I think that's right on the head, right? You can see that in a whole bunch of different places in the show. Where really bad things are happening. Every character has got some fatal, terrible flaw, something horrible that's happening to them. And every time you think, oh my God, that's really bad, another character comes to kind of not necessarily pick them up, but at least to embrace them and say, like, you're not alone, everything's okay. And so I think that's actually kind of a hopeful part of the show. And it shows that, yeah, your glory days are gone, but what's important is still there, and that's the people. So I think that's right on. That's really good. Joe said, "Isn't there an FC message about the modern failure to harmonize what we do for work, the arts and the sciences, with our identity, what and how we really think?"
Yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
big time.
Big time.
Yeah,
And
and again,
one of my favorite movies, like, if I had to do, in fact, we should do a show on this, but like, like the 10 movies that most changed your life. One of my top movies was The Razor's Edge, which is one of those movies that, like, Bill Murray actually starred. I think he directed it,
mm-hmm,
and it was like his baby. And
mm-hmm.
he only agreed to do Ghostbusters
That's
as a
right.
way to fund this movie. So, like,
Mm-hmm,
part of his deal was, okay, I'm going to do this movie, and then you're going to fund this other movie
mm-hmm,
for me.
mm-hmm,
And there's this great scene. So, for those who don't know, the Razor's Edge is a book by Somerset Maugham, and there's this great scene where the story of the Razor's Edge is, there's this guy. He goes to he graduates high school or college from Lake Forest College in suburban Chicago. Like, it's a really kind of, Lake Forest is like where the really, really rich people live. Like, that's where the big mansions are. So he's coming from this really affluent background, and they raise funds to purchase an ambulance, and he and his buddy are going to go over to Europe and drive an ambulance, kind of reminiscent of Ernest Hemingway, and he sees the horrors of World War One in stark relief. And so, like many of those people in the 1920s, there's this, like, lost generation, and so he kind of realizes he can't really go back home after what he's seen. He then goes to Britain, and he starts working in a coal mine, and he meets this coal miner, and who invites him over to his house for tea, and he's kind of smeared with dirt, and he just sort of casually asks, he says, "Well, have you read the Upanishads?" And Bill Murray's character's like, "No." And he says, "Oh, well, you're nobody if you haven't read the Upanishads. You have to read the Upanishads." And he says, "Well, can you lend me a copy?" And the coal miner says, "Well, I don't lend my books to coal miners. They have dirty hands, like." And so he, it kind of sets him off on this quest, and so I just remember that scene, because what it said was that, like our nobility transcends our circumstances, right?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Absolutely. Um, Chris really popped in again and said, another theme of the show is dealing with loss. Dud loses his father, as well as his sister. Sister loses her safety net. Ernie loses his job, his love, and the lodge is losing its members. That's also right on. And Larry, kind of the ancillary character of the Sovereign Protector, is losing his mind,
Yeah.
and his health. And so everyone is dealing with loss in a way. Very, very sharp as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, and
yeah.
I should say too that I just forgot my thought.
Well, what we need to do, by the way, is we should really write all these themes down, and we'll do another show as the season wraps up and revisit our ideas on, halfway through, we thought this is where this was going, and these were the themes that we're developing. Did they develop all the way through the show, and how did they tie up?
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be really interesting to revisit this, because we could be just horribly wrong,
Yeah,
which would be way awesome.
Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah, but I think it would be fun to kind of see, well, we're about halfway through right now. Where are we going to be at the end of this? Are we still going to think that these are the themes that they were trying to drive at? Because I feel like they've been kind of pounding on these things through these episodes. It's right out there in the open for you to see. They're not hidden. But that's next.
Yeah. So that takes us to my favorite part of PARDES, which is Sod, which is the hidden or the mystical meaning. Any thoughts on that?
I do. I think the show is about transformation. It is alchemy. They hint at alchemy all the way through it. They talk about it a lot, and so that is what this is about. This is about alchemy and transformation.
Mm-hmm.
It's about the great work, turning lead into gold. And what does that transformation, what does that journey mean to each of the characters? And then how does the transformation of each of these characters translate to the transformation of the lodge? And I think that that's what's really going on underneath the surface of this, is that it's all about a transformation into better people.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. There's a couple of things that I find are sort of deeply symbolic about the show. One is when you look at the characters of Ernie, Connie, Blaze, and Scott,
Mm-hmm.
I saw them as elements, right? I saw Ernie as Earth.
Oh.
Right?
All right.
He's this
Okay,
sort of
sure,
down
I'll
to
buy
earth,
that.
no bullshit
All right.
kind of guy.
Yeah,
Like,
sure.
so
Okay.
every
All right.
time somebody starts spouting anything sort of esoteric, Ernie just kind of rolls his eyes and brings it
Right.
back down to earth, right? Like,
Sure. Okay.
right.
All right. I'll buy that.
I think Connie is air. So one of the things that we didn't talk about was that Connie, and this is kind of interesting. I think that this is the point that I wanted to bring up. There's this plot thing where Connie is married to Scott, but she's having an affair with Ernie.
Right.
And we don't know why yet, but this is happening. And this is one of those things. It's like, that's why we're all male, you know?
Right.
Right.
Right. Exactly.
That's exactly. Yeah. So, but Connie, you know, she's air because she's kind of being blown around, right? She's losing her job. You know, she's not really paying that much attention to her marriage.
Okay.
She's here, she's there. Nothing is grounding her. And then the other thing too is that she's had a seizure. So we know that there's something wrong with her. We know that there's something medically wrong with her, but she's not dealing with it. Right. So she's just sort of living for the day. And that to me is a very air-like, the winds come up, the winds go down.
Okay.
Right. And so, Blaze, obviously his name is Blaze. So he's fire, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's the transformational, fire is a transformational element, right? It oxidizes things. It turns wood into charcoal.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So to me, Blaze is the element of fire. And then Scott being the harbor master, right? The harbor patrol, right? He's water,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? And so I think that they represent sort of the cardinal points. And I'm trying to figure out, like, so Dud to me is like the aspirant,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to figure out who Larry is. Like, I was wondering, like, is he the fool in the tarot? Like, what, what?
Well, okay. So I think that's super interesting. And I think that, first of all, I have to say this. I buy your interpretation. I'm in hook, line, sinker for that. And here's why, is because I think that what the show is doing now is that it's keeping you in mystery on, so who is Larry? Is Larry the fool, or is Larry the wizard? Is he the one that truly knows what's going on?
The magus.
And right. Is he is this story culminating into something that he's sort of planned to have happen, right? And he's just playing the fool. And so I think that's a really, really interesting thing. And I think your theory hinges on what Larry is, right? What he turns out to be.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that's really, really interesting. Chris Ruley says Larry is death because he's there to cause the transition. Maybe.
I always thought that so I don't know what her name is, but the woman who is in HR.
Yeah.
Right.
So that she's death.
I think she's death.
Okay.
Right. She's the angel of death. Yeah. And because that's all she does, right? She just terminates people. And
that's right.
And she's desperately lonely. There was a good book by, I think it was Piers Anthony, He was a science fiction writer, and he wrote a series about this guy who meets death on the road and kills him. And because he kills death, he has to become death. And so it's sort of about his lonely existence being death. And so, so what happens is Dud starts to like, she invites him over to like, look at her pool, which is not working. And he like pulls a rat and they kind of
live rat.
Yeah. Like a live rat. And he starts this relationship with her. And so now they're kind of dating, sort of, we think maybe it just sort of started. So
yeah. Right. I think they got busy on the last episode.
I think they got busy on the last episode, but I think that's Dud flirting with death, and and so
that's good.
That's
good. Really, I'm not going to defend you on that one. That's good.
I don't know. I mean, we'll have to see.
But see, but Ruli's point stands because I think that he's right in a way because,
or is he the magician?
Because we don't know anything about Larry, right? But we know that Larry's really important to the central plot of the season, and so we've seen very little of him. But Larry himself, to use the showbiz term, Larry's the MacGuffin, right? He's the thing that keeps the plot moving.
Yeah.
In a lot of the episodes.
Yeah.
So Larry has to be important in some way, because the MacGuffin isn't a throwaway object.
Right.
It has some importance, but its primary importance is to drive the plot forward. And so at some point we're going to have to figure out at least a little bit about what Larry is, right?
All right, I'm going to go make a prediction so I can be hopelessly wrong when we do.
Yeah, no, this is great. Wait.
Okay.
Should we? Are we going to leave that? Let's leave that for the end. Are we done? Right. Because if we're done,
no, we're not done.
We can make predictions. Okay,
I got more. Predictions
are at the end.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, no,
that's fine. All right, so let's talk about Dud and the snake bite. Right, the snake is a symbol of wisdom.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
So Dud gets bitten by wisdom.
Correct.
Right. And yeah. Go ahead.
And what's interesting also is that the wound wouldn't heal.
Yes.
It wasn't cared for correctly.
Yes.
Blaze tells him, oh, this is, it's not cared for correctly, but I think I can help you.
Right. So, yeah. So to me, that's him getting bitten by the need for wisdom. Right.
Yeah.
The snake has bitten him and he can't go back to his former life. He can't go back to the pool job because he's beyond it and he can't go back to surfing.
Okay. And
surfing itself is a symbol, right? Surfing is like
going
where the wave takes you, right?
And it's always been a spiritual sport, a spiritual based sport, right? I mean, you never hear a surfer get out there and be like, yeah, I just get on waves. It's stupid. I mean, they all have like this like deep philosophical connection with nature and the ocean.
Yeah.
And you know what I'm saying? Like there's no surfer that just goes, it's fun. Yeah. So, okay, wait, but I'm going to break out of this for just a second because I think it's really interesting. And you're 100% right, obviously, that the snake is an ancient symbol of wisdom, right? Before the snake was the bad guy, the snake was the good guy. So here's my question. Do you think the writers know that?
Yeah.
Because I don't know, because I'll tell you, that is a truly esoteric piece of knowledge. Honestly.
I think they do. I mean, well, here's the thing too. In Judaism, the snake has a totally, like, the snake isn't the devil in Judaism.
Exactly.
The snake is wisdom. The snake is the guy who says, you really should know the truth. The truth is you're not going to die if you eat this fruit, right?
Yeah, fair. Okay.
Which is true. Right?
Yeah.
So it's a different take on it.
Okay.
It's like man does sin because he disobeys God.
Is that common knowledge to most Jews?
Well, here's what's common. What's common knowledge is that the snake is not the devil.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Right?
The snake is the snake.
All right. Okay.
And if you read Genesis, like what it says is the snake was the cleverest of all the beasts, right?
Right.
So the snake is this clever beast to tempt Eve, and
You're getting me on your side. I don't know if I'm fully there yet or not, but you're getting me on your side. It's fine.
Yeah.
You've made it.
The other reference to the snake in the Bible is when God tells Moses to put a brazen serpent on a stick, and when you looked at the serpent, you would be healed.
Correct.
Right. And so that's sort of the beginning of the Asclepius or whatever.
Right. Ruli says, is the snake the Ouroboros? I don't think so. I don't think so in this context.
Yeah, I don't either. I think that the snake just represents the
I think you're right. It's wisdom.
The call to wisdom. And because he was ignoring that call when he immediately got back, that's what got him into trouble. Right.
Right.
I agree. Like what God says is in Genesis is like, because you've done this, you're going to know suffering, right? Not that you didn't suffer before, but now you're going to be aware of it. Right. So Correct. He is suffering without being aware of it. And he needs to, he knows that until he finds that wisdom is going to set him straight. So up until that point, he's kind of a mess.
All right. That's good.
He can't go back to his ordinary world. And then the last symbol that is really interesting is water, right? Water plays a huge symbol. So if you even look at like the key visual or the KV, as we say in advertising, the KV for Lodge 49 is they're all at the bottom of a pool.
Correct.
And he's standing there with his, trying to get my can in front of the camera here. He's standing there like this with his hand, and there's a donut floating in the pool, almost like it's the apple.
That's right.
Right. Like he's about to pluck the apple, right? So water is this really interesting symbol, right? So Liz is like says that she's trying to keep her just keep her head above water. Dud has worked around and in water, right? So he was a pool repairman, and then he was a surfer, right? So it's
and he jumps in his childhood pool that has been his childhood home was auctioned off in the bankruptcy proceedings. And he jumps in the pool at night because he's trying to reclaim the house in some way. Okay, all right.
And then we've got the dried out corpse of the past master, right? So there's this lack of water.
That's right. He's dehydrated, and they make a big deal about it.
Yeah,
dehydrated. Yeah.
So water is playing this really central role in and Death invites Dudley over to her to look at her pool, right? To fix it, right? So
there you go.
I don't know. I don't know yet what water is a symbol of. I think maybe life, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. I don't know. Let me throw another one out there for you. That I'm not sure what it means quite yet. And I don't know if they'll come back to it or if this was just a throwaway. But I believe in this, it's either the first or the second episode. Dud is in the parking lot of the lodge, and he looks up, and on the second story of the lodge, there are no windows on the side. It's just a brick wall of the lodge. And on the second story, there's a door that leads to nothing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And he looks at that and is like, huh? And kind of thinks about it. I'm sure they'll come back to it at some point.
Can I tell you something? We actually had a door like that in our lodge.
That's awesome.
Honest to God. So before the Scottish Rite moved out to the suburbs,
the Southgate.
Right. We used to meet in the Scottish Rite Cathedral used to be in they called it Bughouse Square, which is kitty corner from the Newbury Library. It's this beautiful part of town. And so we met in what was called the small preceptory. And so the way the Chicago Cathedral was laid out is there was the church, the cathedral part, right? And then there were a whole bunch of like mansions, and the Scottish Rite owned the entire city block. And so the back half, the eastern half of the lot was a big parking lot, and the western half of the lot were these 4 mansions, plus the church, plus this building that was built in the back. And that building in the back was the small preceptory. And there used to be a fire escape that eventually rotted and they pulled down. But there's this door, and it's funny, if you went into the lodge room in the gallery, there was a fire escape up there. It was like a fire door that they had to keep like completely nailed shut. Because if you went through it, you'd fall a story. And, so there was actually a door and you could see it from the outside. Like the people were like, what's that? We'd be like,
Escape death by fire, death by crushing.
Yeah.
This way. Yeah. But so I know that that's some sort of a symbol that I'll understand later in the show. But I just pointed out for posterity, so that when we get through it and we can go back and we can examine what the hell was that, because I know it's got to be something important, that it means something.
Yeah.
It, and these days, especially in these kind of prestige television shows, right? They're so well written these days, and they're so well edited and produced. They're very efficient in that there is nothing that's a throwaway.
Yeah.
There's nothing that's a throwaway.
Well, and they've come back to it. So there's several shots where
has it really?
There's a couple.
Noticed.
There's like at least two or three where Dud is just standing by the lodge and just sort of staring up at the door.
Like, okay,
What's
good.
that doing there? So
okay.
there's obviously something up with that,
Sure. Okay. Maybe. And all right, I'm going to go. Well, we're not to predictions yet. I'm sorry. I was going to make a prediction about what I think the door might be.
So, all right. So do you have, that's all I have for symbolism so far.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else?
Not that I can think of.
Anybody on social media have anything?
Nope.
Okay. Then we can go to predictions.
All right. Okay. So, I'm gonna start, and I'm gonna start with the small prediction, and the small prediction is the door. I think the door will play in at some point as a leap of faith, right? I think the door will be connected with some sort of ritual that they're going to do, and part of it is a leap of faith where they ask you to walk through that door, right? Something like that. That's my prediction. Might be a little simple, but it's prediction nonetheless. So there you go. You go. You predict away. What are you going to predict, by the way? What are we predicting?
I don't know.
Is yours a big prediction? Like, here's where the story is going, and here's how I think this is going to play out? Or is your prediction a small prediction like my prediction, which is I think the door is a leap of faith?
I don't know. So here's where I think this is kind of going. I think that there's a lot more to this lodge than the people
clearly
in the lodge know about. And I think once this guy from England gets there, they're going to start to discover. They're going to start to discover mysteries, secrets, mysteries. Yeah.
Here's what I think is interesting about that, Eric, is that I think what's interesting too is that those secrets, I think as they open this mystery box, for the viewer and for the characters, because I think that's what's interesting is that it's a little meta, because the show itself is a mystery box, because they're giving us little bits and pieces as we're going through to propel the story. But I think that the mystery box really is for the characters of the show, right? And I think that when they start to reveal some of this stuff, and Blaze in the last episode found really old writings on the dead
in cipher,
right, in cipher, right. And so I think that what's going to happen in the show as we go through this is that whatever those secrets are revealed, the show it's really about how do each of those characters deal with these revelations, right? So, and I think that's where your elemental idea comes into it, right? Is how do they interact with each other, and then decipher what these answers to the mysteries are, because I don't think they're going to give clear answers. Those answers will be decoded in a way by the characters, and they'll make their own meaning from it. That's what I think.
All right. I'm going to go out on a limb here and
go ahead.
Do a whopper and we'll all have a good laugh when I'm proved wrong. But I think I've been trying to work out like the character of Liz, right? So Liz, remember, is Dudley's sister,
sure,
right?
right.
And so like what, like they spend about a quarter of every show talking about Liz, right? And so
absolutely.
what's that all about? And so what I think is going to happen is the lodge itself is going to reconnect with this ancient wisdom. And I think what's going to happen is that it's going to transform them as people, and they're going to have the secrets of turning base metal into gold. And they're going to have this realization. This is a whopper, I'm telling you. This is
good. I like where you're going.
They're going to have this realization that their mission, their purpose is to bring that to humanity.
Okay.
Right. And she represents humanity.
Okay.
And so they're going to do this kind of spiritual healing on Liz, and because Liz is us, right?
All right. Okay. I
Liz
like
isn't
that.
in the lodge.
Sure. What if what this actually is that they do find this, right? And they, and we'll go with your guess, with your theory, and they do find out how to transform lead into gold, right? Actually, that's a really interesting.
Well, I think it's metaphorical.
Posit. No, I don't. No. What if it's real? Right. And that's what this is about, which I think that's a really interesting way to take it, because if you've noticed, every character that's been introduced in the show has horrible, crippling financial problems. Am I right? Yeah. Almost every single one has financial problems that are crippling. What if this ancient knowledge, they actually do rediscover actually how to turn lead into gold, right? And they're able then to instantly become ridiculously wealthy. What if what this show actually is about you can't run from your problems, and that they think that the answer is, well, if I had a whole bunch of money, if my car didn't run out of gas constantly, what happens if they're all given instant success? And that's what it's really about, which is about the fact that, like, listen, yeah, you were supposed to take this as an allegory. That's where the real treasure was. I mean, yeah, you found this, but I don't think so. No,
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I think it's too simple, number one, but I also think that it's too simple, and it's dumb. It's dumb for the show. I think the show's too smart to go that way. But
yeah, I don't think it's going to be literal, but I do think that they're going to find this secret.
Sure.
So I've always maintained, I love, there's a great book by Antero Lee called Angel Tech, and he says that magic is the art of reality selection, right? So magic happens when you're able to shift your perception to see a defect as an opportunity, right? To see a tragedy as a blessing, right?
Right.
And I think what's going to happen is the secret that they're going to find is something that's more spiritual, but nevertheless allows them all to find the success. Maybe defined differently. Maybe it's not the success of how our society defines success, but they find inner peace. They find happiness. Like they say in the Proverbs and the Talmud. Happy is the man who finds wisdom, right? And so they find they find this kind of wisdom, and they realize that they're rich after all, right? Because they're rich in wisdom.
Sure. Okay.
All right. And they're able to find healing and closure through each other. I think I don't know if it'll happen this season. I'm not sure that Connie is going to survive. I don't know. To me, Connie dying would be like a really interesting kind of wedge between Scott and Ernie. Yeah. Which would be kind of interesting. But yeah, I think that it's going to be, one of the things that I've always understood about alchemy is that it never really was about actually turning lead into gold.
Of course.
It was a spiritual turning lead into gold, into
correct.
I think that's what's going to happen, that they're going to find that they're going
Mm-hmm.
to find that you know, that the the riches of the world are in agape. They're in, you know, love for each other. You know, it's like
Mm-hmm.
it's the thing that where you, and I think this is true of Masonry, right? I think where, with all the stuff that we do and all the problems that we have, the one thing that we have is each other, and that's more than most people in the world can say.
Yeah.
Right? Most people in the world can't say, you know, I have a brotherhood behind me, right? And that's, I think that's an important, you know, and it can help you kind of reframe things, right? So you can say,
Mm-hmm.
well, I'm not really a success in financially, but I am a 33rd degree Mason, right? You know,
Right.
that means
Sure.
something to somebody.
Right. Sure.
Right?
Absolutely. Okay. Just a couple things, a couple comments before we're done here from Facebook. Ruli said his prediction. Dud's dad applied for the Lynx and was blackballed, and Dud has to make a decision to stay with people who rejected his father.
Interesting.
Not bad.
Okay.
Not bad.
Okay.
Jeff Woosley. Dud is the Philosopher's Stone.
That's interesting.
Right?
Oh, okay.
Jeff's got a good one. That's a really interesting idea.
That's a good one.
That is a really good one. You know, and that makes sense with how, you know, television, movies, entertainment these days is written with the whole hero's journey, right?
Yeah.
If Dud's the Philosopher's Stone, makes a lot of sense in that circle. So we've put a pin in you, Jeff, and if you're wrong,
you owe us a drink.
right, if you're wrong, we will punish you, because it's a damn good idea.
Yeah.
It's a really good one.
Good, yeah.
Yeah. But I think you're right. I think that's fantastic. So, I mean, bottom line, right, for this show, my closing thing is, the bottom line in this show, I think this show is super interesting from a bunch of different levels. I think that it's really well written. It's very well thought through. It's a smart show. Even though it feels like it's a comedy kind of, sort of, and like, you know, but it's a very deep show.
You know, AMC is very good at this. Like, Mad Men was like this, right?
Sure, absolutely.
Like the scene with the lawnmower. I mean, that was hilarious and tragic at the same time, right?
Exactly. You know, and so, like, it's really done well. I'm super happy with it, and so I'm excited to see where it goes next. So that's it.
Cool.
What do you think? What's your final?
My final? What do you mean?
Yeah. What's your final thoughts? What are you know?
I'm loving it. I'm along for the ride, and I like finding the Masonic parallels. It's giving me here's what it's doing for me as a Mason. It's giving me new insight. It's giving me like fresh eyes on the fraternity.
Yeah.
Right. And its value, right? Like,
absolutely.
Like, so the things that I was kind of focused on and thought, you know, this is what Masonry is good for. I'm finding like that there's a whole other aspect to it that I'm really kind of into, and it gives you a fresh take. It's cool. Yeah, and the fact that they're, as an organization, they're way worse off than we are. You know,
right. Makes me feel a little better.
Well, what it does is you understand that a lot of the stuff that we're, you know, the pain that we're going through now with you know, this group getting mad at that group and pulling recognition from this guy and expelling that guy, all of that kind of stuff is a symptom, but I think ultimately kind of a blip. And you know, I mean, we talked about it on an earlier episode where I think it's just people, you know, like too many chiefs and not enough Indians, as it were, and
too many Indians and not enough chiefs.
No, I think it's too many chiefs. I think we have too many appendant bodies and too many organizations that require support, and we have dwindling resources, and so everybody's kind of fighting over like who's most important, who's reigning supreme. But even all that
nobody's a real leader. That was my point.
Well, yeah. So, but this organization doesn't have that, right? They don't have.
Yeah,
they're
exactly.
what they are. There's no like Scottish Rite. There's no York Rite. Right. There's no Shrine. There's none of that stuff.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
So that kind of puts it into a different light for me. So I can sort of say, okay, well, what's even the esoteric stuff, which I've always felt in Masonry has been like guys collecting things, right?
Correct. Absolutely.
I now see that there's purpose to it, and provided that we can kind of understand and teach a form of esotericism that is actually useful, actually,
right. Yeah.
does something in one's life rather than just sort of bestows some lineage or some jewel or lapel pin or whatever. Right. I think that there's a lot of value in the fraternity, and it's giving me a different take on that. So
that's awesome.
I'm really interested to see where it goes. And what I love about it is that because there's things that they do that we don't, like have women in the lodge, have bars in the basement. Like, it's just great fun to see like, I look for like, there, but for the grace of Grand Lodge go I, right? You know what I mean? Like, right. Like, like totally. What would things be like if we had a bar and they go, oh, okay. Oh, well, might be better. Might be.
Yeah. All right. Absolutely.
So anyway, thank you guys for those who stuck with us. Thank you for sticking with it. We would love to know what you think of the show. Drop us a line at xoriente@gmail.com or leave a comment on our Facebook page. We're enjoying the heck out of this show and hope you are too. And if a big shout out and big thank you to our executive producers, without whom this show cannot happen. If you'd like to become an executive producer, just mosey on over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/X-Oriente and pledge to become an executive producer. I think that's it. Next week, we'll be talking about the gentleman, about what a gentleman is and how to be one, and what it means to be a gentleman. So you won't want to miss that. And we'll post an announcement on the Facebook and in the blog.
Book of Face.
The Book of Face. And that's about it for us. Anything else you want to add?
No.
Any plugs? Any shameless plugs? Nothing?
No, got none.
Cool.
Got none.
All right, listen, everybody. What?
Send me money.
Send me money. Take my money. All right. Well, thanks everybody for coming, and hope to see you next time on X-Oriente. And one other thing, guys. If you like the show, wherever you're listening to this, do us a favor and leave a nice review, because it helps people find the show. And so that's a good thing. So thanks very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care, everybody. And we'll see you next time. Fiat Vox.